Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Unbiased Truth with your host, Branson. And right now, I'm here to talk about all the cumulative effects of the Trump presidency has had on modern culture these days and how the disagreements between the right and left is manifested and how all their principles and ideologies have split over the last several months. But I'm going to go on this guy, Secular Talk, Kyle Kalinske, which I've always followed. He's definitely on the far left, but he sometimes has some good, valid points to bring to the table. And as you know, in order to be unbiased, you'd kind of have to get from all perspectives in order to be wise enough to see through all the bullshit. So we're going to watch what he has to say about Asmongold, talking about, commentating about the war, the attack, not the attack, but the abduction of Maduro in Venezuela, and how, liberals are phrasing it and how they seem to disagree with all this.
All right, guys. So, Asmongold, one of the top slop tubers who has become very political in recent times, he, on his live stream, apparently, casually said that he supports the U.S. military killing innocent people in other countries in order to steal their resources, is what he said. By the way, this is the guy who, it wasn't that long ago, wasn't he pretending to have turned on Trump over the Epstein files? I believe I may have covered that. That he was like, oh no, I've always been critical of him. I don't know what you're talking about. His own chat was coming after him, and he's like, oh, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I've always been critical of him. You're not paying attention. I've always, I've been against this for a long time. I didn't even vote for him. This whole thing about how, oh, of course. All it took to win him back was for Trump to launch an illegal and offensive war against a country that didn't attack us and wasn't going to attack us, and kidnap the sovereign independent leader and drag them to our country to try them. Now, I wonder what his reaction would be if China kidnapped Trump and tried to try him. Would he support that? Or he supports it in principle, apparently.
Okay, and the thing with the liberals is they do have a definitely valid point of the whole process, even though I mostly agree with it, that it was in fact a good thing that Maduro's gone, bloodthirsty tyrant that killed many of his own people and stuff like that, and he trafficked drugs. But even then, the drugs, fentanyl isn't even coming from Venezuela. It's primarily 90% coming from Mexico, and that's a proven fact. So we all knew drugs, the drug trafficking charges, and, spreading democracy, as the old adage always goes, that was all a cover for the war, right? It was all a cover to get their oil. At least Trump, compared to Bush in Iraq and Afghanistan, he was being honest with it, but he says we're going to help redevelop. But I still think it was a good thing. But yeah, it was definitely a brazen violation of international law and the UN Charter. But, the UN doesn't do anything about bloodthirsty dictator inflicting pain on his own people anyways. So you could say go to hell with that. But I also don't want to live in the same world where we all start violating international law, because China's going to definitely look at this and be like, oh, yeah, that's the green light. Let's go attack. Let's go attack. And maybe not attack Taiwan immediately because they know we're their ally, their strongest ally they could have. But they could attack the other neighbors, Like I would say Philippines being then another U.S. ally. But some of the other ones, they could start being more aggressive with their fishing exploitation against other countries, where they send a bunch of fishing boats along with their army backing them, their navy. And then they start to outfish waters near the Philippines and in South America, even other places in Russia, all because they overfished and killed all the fish in their waters. But anyways, yeah. It's brazen violation of international law, and as you know, that led to the buildup of World War II, because all the countries started disobeying the League of Nations, which was the precursor to the United Nations, and, Italy waged its massacre against Ethiopia when they colonized and conquered it, which they used, tear gas and other, mustard gas and stuff in the population, but that was breaking international law. There's a lot of other stuff and events that happened that took place in order to build up to that ultimate moment of disaster and war. And I just don't want to see a similar outcome, because Russia's already doing it. At least the thing is, Russia and China are already doing it. But hopefully, this will definitely give them further incentives to do further. But it's all, it's just further untangling the mess. But let's get back to the video.
So would he support that? My guess is he'd be singing a different tune, of course. But here we go. Here's what he said. Let's watch.
Cuba's days are numbered. Colombia isn't going to be doing this anymore. Okay, yeah, I can see there's definitely a trend here. You specifically said you'd be against foreign intervention and nation building. Why have you switched positions? Well, I'm generally against it, but there are some instances where I'd be okay with it.
I'm generally against it, but the most naked, brazen, disgusting, corrupt, immoral, illegal, worst way of doing it, I love that because it makes me feel like a tough guy. And it makes me feel like Trump is like superhuman. So I'm against it unless he does it in the most brazen way possible, then I love it. How does anybody watch this?
I mean, to be honest, it is hypocritical when you say no new wars and all that type of message, you know, as part of the in order to increase your coalition to get reelected. And then you do stuff like this, bomb Iran, you know, like hasn't ended the Ukraine war, you know, I guess sort of ended the war in Gaza slightly. But, you know, he's doing all these other issues and tearing up old alliances. And yeah, it is like you're not keeping a status quo. You're not turning your attention inwards towards rebuilding the country. While I do agree, yeah, it's betraying your principles, as, you know, most pragmatic politicians do in order to achieve their goals. At the same time, I mean, at least people will be honest, hopefully, that they're pro-imperialism, you know? You'll be like, oh, it's time that America start kicking ass around the world. And other countries such as Russia and China, which would have already gotten the resources in Venezuela, is told to back off of our sphere. But there's so many different ways to look at this, you know, but we'll continue.
How does anybody watch this, bro? I actually don't understand. I genuinely don't get it.
Like, I think it's something that's generally a bad idea, but if we can get enough money out of the place that we're intervening in, and we can effectively make it worthwhile for us, then I'd be okay with it.
So I'm generally against it.
I mean, Iraq and Afghanistan were total failures, so, you know, that wasn't a good way of nation building. But Germany and the rest of Europe were.
But if we're willing to do very open thievery, if we're willing to do robbery and theft and jack their natural resources for our corporations, well, in that case, I'm in favor of it. Asmund Gold, that's an argument to overthrow like literally every country on Earth. Everybody's got something of value, some places more than other, of course. But you just laid the groundwork.
But not an increasing tension world where the world is dividing into multipolar entity, where, you know, everyone's going to competing within their own sphere of influences. And what Trump is doing right now, his ultimate two-pronged approach, is to consolidate our resources, such as rare earth materials and others, oil and other strategic resources, in order to build up, prepare against war against China and Russia in the future, but also to keep the petrodollar alive, you know, to sort of hopefully stabilize that, maybe get rid of the debt. I've heard he's got some sort of method to the madness for the 38 trillion in debt that we have, or possibly it's more. But still, that's his two main approaches. Always save the petrodollar, which we've always done with invasions throughout, you know, the last 30 years with Iraq and Libya, Gaddafi. But also consolidate resources. And I guess really, you know, just gloves off approach to American imperialism. Which, part of me, I don't know. A lot of people do enjoy that.
And the argument for, no, yeah, I would do this to anybody, anywhere, as long as I feel like our corporations are getting off scot-free and stealing a lot of shit. I mean, this is Fourth Reich shit. Let's call it what it is. And it's even like, it's like pirate type shit, too.
But they've got to stop utilizing the term Fourth Reich Nazi. It's like that's what every country did. I mean, Germany did it brutally to an extent, also to wipe out the people. But say we actually go in, we're going to get definitely a good deal with Venezuela because we're taking their shit. But hopefully, we at least give back and rebuild everything so it doesn't just go to the Uber class over there and at least benefits the lower people. You know, people who have been persecuted by the dictator, by Maduro, and you know, lost everything, you know, family members and, you know, their property. So hopefully we can help rebuild that situation, because it would be great if, yeah, they could have sort of be a direct American vassal, but they also enjoy being it and we rebuild. I mean, you know, that would be a good thing too, but we've never seen and we haven't seen for many years a successful nation building venture.
This is like flat out piracy that he's arguing for. But since it's, you know, a reality star wearing a suit, he feels like somehow there's some legitimacy that's granted to it. It's preposterous.
Then I'd be okay with it. Does that make sense? So it's all about whether we're making money off of it. That's my primary function, is that I think about, is this good for Americans?
Who's we? Who?
at least hopefully it doesn't just benefit the Uber Epstein, billionaire class. And hopefully if a war did benefit most Americans in the middle class and lower classes, then I wouldn't say I'm super for it, because it might be bad, but I'd be more in favor of it than what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Because none of us benefited. Nobody benefited, except we think it's a failure, but it was actually genius, a total success for them. They totally got off. Lockheed Martin, all the other weapons and manufacturers and arms dealers, all those guys, oil, all of them. The corporations, the billionaire class, they made millions, billions, possibly even trillions over there with all the defense spending contracts going around. So they totally won, with Cheney in office, directing all that massacre and that horrible stuff we did over there. But yeah, but at least if we did, do some imperialism, but we benefited, most Americans did benefit, you could sort of argue with that, but you can't. But that's what Asmongold's trying to say. I don't know what's going on right now with that thing, but we'll continue.
Who's we? You said as long as we're making money off it. Who's we? You're not ExxonMobil. You're not Chevron. You're not BP. You're not Citgo. This only helps the Epstein class. This only helps the billionaires. This only helps the corporations, the oil corporations. By the way, they promised Trump, Trump said to them, give me $1 billion for my campaign. He said this to oil companies, give me $1 billion, then I'll deliver for you guys. Give me $1 billion, I'll deliver for you guys. The most openly corrupt, this was reported on at the time, openly corrupt deal. And would you look at that? Now he's president, and he's openly saying, we're going to take the oil, we're going to overthrow Venezuela, we're going to take the oil. They granted an ultra-Zionist MAGA billionaire, Paul Singer, was given the rights to Citgo, the U.S. branch of the Venezuelan state oil company. Now that guy has it, and he's going to be the one to go in there and fucking fix up all the infrastructure and make a tremendous amount of money off of it. This is so crazy, the shit that he's saying. Oh my God.
See, and that's the thing. I think what mostly is going to happen is Trump's just going to benefit a lot of the rich people, the corporations, billionaires. But really won't benefit the Venezuelans. Maybe a little bit because they got rid of a bloodthirsty tyrant, but they're not really going to see their livelihoods improve maybe that much or noticeably. And with us too, if we're just like, oh yeah, the gas is, unless gas goes down or other major things happen, lower taxes because we have all these new resources pouring into our economy, then that's the only time you could say it's noticeably better. But most of the time that stuff doesn't happen. The super rich classes just make more money, and it doesn't get better for the common man.
Think about, is this good for Americans? And if it is, if it's making us money, it's beneficial for us, it's lowering our costs, or there's some other downstream effect of it, then yeah, I'd be okay with it.
He hasn't thought this through in the slightest. This wouldn't help you or I at all, not even a little bit. It's about corporate profits. It's about the Epstein class, the billionaires. The idea that, oh yeah, we're really looking out for a grandma who lives in Cleveland. Like, get the fuck out of here. He doesn't even fucking believe that. He's just using this to justify and rationalize the most disgusting foreign policy actions that we've seen in modern history.
But us just going over there and doing it for no reason? No, I don't think so.
There's always a reason. Nobody's like, hey, for shits and giggles, I'm gonna go to New Zealand and fucking do regime change. Nobody does that. Nobody's ever done that. There's always a reason. Read about the history of the Banana Wars. That was a reason. We
crazy, I think.
wanted to fucking overthrow a government so that the Chiquita...
I believe it was Nicaragua, where it was major fruit company or like something fruit company, and they're about to nationalize all the plantations, and that was going to affect them, and so they got the U.S. government involved, which they were already lobbying with and paying some politicians to do a coup over there, and it was a whole bloody
The banana
endeavor.
company can fucking jack all the bananas. That sounds incredibly dirty, but you get the point.
Where we intervene in other sovereign countries.
Nobody's ever done it for no reason. Bush had his reason. By the way, that would also happen to be oil. That would be control of a vital region in the world geopolitically. Like, there were reasons, but what about fucking law? What about law? What about principles? What about morality? What about ethics? What about equality? What about justice? Again,
because, I mean, they do have a point, because we're supposed to be the golden boy, the good person on this world that's supposed to represent democracy, republicanism, all these good libertarian virtues, liberty and everything. But do we live up to that? Most of the time, no. Ever since World War II, we mostly fallen short, failed, or been super hypercritical, with the CIA doing bloody coups, massacres, funding death armies, in South America and Africa. It's been terrible. So, a lot of people justifiably hate us, and I understand why they want a new system. But at least if we still had that facade several years ago, now it's just totally gone out the window. We're like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's be on the same level as them. So, okay, we could totally devolve to that. And part of me sees the logic in doing that, but a lot of me sees not. But
to want to live in a
finish.
world where might makes right, and it's the law of the jungle, is so fucking short-sighted, because throughout history, empires rise and fall. There will be a time where we're not the most powerful
Always.
country anymore. It's going to happen at some point. Probably sooner rather than later, because Trump's ushering in that time very fast.
especially if the currency collapses as the reserve currency, the US dollar. That'd be terrible.
I don't want to be on the receiving end of fucking China randomly overthrowing our government because they don't like that we're not giving them enough of our fucking natural gas that we get from fracking.
Yeah, they just give us a slight cover for all the world and their citizens, and everyone buys it, and they're like, okay, it's justifiable. Like, we also shouldn't lower ourselves to that standard. But I see why Trump's doing it, but,
Like, put the shoe on the other foot for fucking once in your life. To all the MAGA people out there, I actually think they're incapable of doing that. I think their brain like short circuits when they try to apply the golden rule and try to put the shoe on the other foot and try to, let me see it if I was in their shoes. They're like, I don't understand. That doesn't make sense. How could I be in their shoes? That makes no sense. Like, I don't think they get it. I don't think he has the mental capability to do that basic intellectual exercise.
But to be honest, like, Trump didn't kill any innocent people when he was there, when we abducted Maduro, for trial. Like, we didn't. It was just military officers, and a lot of people, most of them were from Cuban military officers and intelligence. So it wasn't like they were saying, oh, they bombed Caracas, the capital. No, it was just the complex, just to get them. But doesn't mean I totally support doing boots on the ground total invasion if they don't agree. But it seems like they agreed for a trade deal in our benefit.
If he did, he'd be fucking horrified at his own words here.
That's my viewpoint on it. That's what I think. No more pointless wars, period. Economical, logical interventions are fine. Yeah, exactly. And even if it costs civilian lives, yeah, who gives a shit? Like, I mean, if the thing is that if you're going to do this stuff, people are going to get killed. That's what's going to happen. It's going to happen for sure.
What if that was your family? What if that was your best friend? What if that was you? What if that was your entire block? What about that? What about that? My guess is then you would, of course, be fucking outraged. If it was your family members or your friends, you would be outraged. You would feel like, has everybody lost their goddamn mind? Are we just in favor of, anarchy? Are we in favor of chaos and savagery and barbarism? Like, is that what we've come to? But when it comes to others, like, who cares? They're like poor brown people in Venezuela. Who gives a shit? Why would anybody care about them? They speak a different language. I don't like them. I don't know them. So, like, why do they count? I don't understand what... Guys, you have to understand something. This, to me, has been a very eye-opening moment. Because I remember having the arguments during the campaign with people where you had a lot of MAGA people who sincerely were arguing, like, no, we think Trump is more anti-war than Kamala. We think Trump and Vance are the peace ticket. You remember these...
And that was the thing when they were saying that a lot. Now, Trump's going against it, proving them all wrong. And they're like, oh, sometimes you have to influence the world in order to protect the home, which I sort of agree with. But any person with a clear mind can see that is reneging on his previous promises.
These arguments, and I was screaming from the top of my lungs. You're just wrong. Like, objectively speaking, factually speaking, opinions aside, this is just black and white, straightforward, like, not even close. He is a bigger warmonger, period. And, like, I remember having these arguments, and it's like you're talking to a brick wall. When
He's always willing to definitely take bold steps, though. You got to give him that.
you have these arguments, like the right,
For
they
change.
refuse to accept that reality. And it didn't matter how many specific examples I brought up of Trump being a warmonger, water off a duck's ass. They wouldn't care. But see, now, the realization I'm having, watching Asmongold is, no, they never cared. Like, they never actually felt like I'm really anti-war and I actually want to support the more anti-war candidate. It was just branding. It was just marketing. They were all part of the fascist, terrorist, Kool-Aid drinking death cult. And so they'll use whatever argument is
They're always going to expand and, try to ridicule like that death cult, whatever, like they were all perfect. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining me in that episode. Like, as you always, biased, you have to find out the other side, what they're saying about you in order to reflect on yourself, whether that's in a personal manner, a political manner, or a spiritual manner. But it's always good to hear from the other side, because Summer, my journalist mentor, used to always say, you hear one side and then you hear the far other. And somewhere along the side, in the middle, is the truth. Lies the truth. So thanks for joining me in this episode. Let me know in the comments what you think. Bye. Have a nice one.